Chippewa Indians, led by Chief Okemos, were the first American Indian tribe to settle in present-day Hazlet in the early 1800s. It wasn't until 1836 when the first wealthy white man came and settled in Hazlet. The Missouri Compromise of 1820 outlined Michigan as a free state. Slaves often sought refuge in the North, and specific records show that they sought refuge with the regiment of Colonel Curtenius. Colonel Curtenius refused to deliver slaves back to their master, and this was mandated by a statute outlined in the Fugitive Slave Act, which was upheld in the Missouri Compromise. So this made Colonel Curtenius a criminal.
So our school is located in Hazlet, and in the area there are a few interesting street names I found. One of them is called Namoki Trail, and when I looked it up, I found that the early origins of the Namoki family was first found in Stirlingshire, and that's in Scotland. And another street is Marsh Road, and this is the street right off of the Hazlet Public Library. And this is of West Germanic origin. And then Hazlet itself is first found in Surrey, where they held a family seat as lords of the manor. So this is also something interesting.
At this particular branch, at this point in time, the only books that we have in another language are in Spanish. We used to have books in other languages, but they didn't circulate. We were trying to have an accessible collection, but in a library this size, if books don't circulate, we just can't keep them.
Yeah.
To be honest with you, the Spanish language books don't really circulate either, but we keep those because it's a really small collection. It's mostly children's books, which I can show you in a minute. And we have a staff member who speaks Korean, and nobody has asked me that question about staff. I mean, we have staff members who speak other languages, but we have like one person specifically who kind of like was billed to us as being a Korean speaker if anyone needed to speak to someone.
Do people come in, I guess, on occasion?
It has never happened yet that someone has come in and needed that kind of assistance, but when they started working here, it was like, oh, and also they speak Korean if it ever comes up. So,
sure.
Yeah.
And if I would assume the library is a network,
Yes.
So if they say we're looking for books in this language, you say we don't have those here,
Yes.
but maybe
Exactly.
a nearby library.
Exactly. Like the Okemos Library is just 3 miles away, and they have a bigger collection of foreign language books. They have a larger space, and they cater more to people who don't speak English.
Great.
We do have a large, or a fairly large foreign language DVD collection. It's not the same thing as books. But.
Interesting. Oh, great.
One of the books we found that she pointed out is in the Spanish section, and it's called Gathering the Sun. So if you go through the book, it has the Spanish and then English translation, so that is pretty helpful if you want to focus on some words like this one, arboles, trees. So this is Hazlet Community Church, and we just got outside and we were talking to one of the main organizers here, and he was telling us about the food bank and some of the things they do. They have some guest speakers come in. What else did he say?
They don't have many attendees to their services that are emergent bilinguals, and they don't offer services to support second English speakers. No other materials in other languages, but the food bank clients are often emergent bilinguals, and that tends to be a different clientele than those that attend the services.
And he did mention that the church is open to anyone, and the food bank is also open to anyone who
Resides within the Hazlet school district.
At China Express, the restaurant, and we found it really interesting on the menu. So you can see there's Chinese and English featured on the menu.
The service staff speaks primarily Chinese and has one, it seems like one person with a stronger English background. And here's the buffet. The main menu up top has mostly English or only English. We're here at the Y, and we spoke with the front desk. They did tell us they don't offer any advertising materials, any information pamphlets in any other language but English. One thing they did say was that they do have some young students that are a part of their camps that are second language speakers, but they don't offer any personnel that speak their language specifically.
So you can see in these pamphlets, unfortunately, they're all in English. So if you were a parent that only spoke a language other than English, it might be hard to get involved and find out information on stuff like the events they have going on and some of the stuff they do in the community. And then this right here is a little magazine, newspaper that
while it doesn't have any other language but English, it does go into things like Chinese New Year, so it has kind of a global perspective, which has some good information that might be a little more inclusive.
So we just finished our community tour, and we're going to go through some of the questions. So the first question is, what ethnic and or linguistic groups are in the community surrounding your placement school? Where did you find evidence of this?
This is something we found on the census website, and it seems like Hazlet is majority white, with second being Asian population, and the third most being Black, African American.
So then we also found evidence we found other languages, like we went to China Express and we found on their menus that they offer Chinese and English on their menu.
And the staff, the owners, all speak Chinese primarily, and English second, but have only working English ability. Seems like some of the people we encountered just had working English skills.
So the second question is, what languages are most important in the community surrounding your placement school? How do you know? I would say definitely English. Most of the places we went to only offer English, and the library, when we went to the library, they had a section for Spanish, but besides that we saw mostly English.
It seemed like some of the local community felt like the demand for second language materials offered in another language wasn't high enough. And I think that's connected to the majority white population kind of driving the dominance of the language in this area. It seems like it would be a very difficult place to exist as a speaker of a home language, and if you had trouble with English.
So the third question asks, where can you find resources in the community for your students' home language? which resources would be most immediately accessible to your students and their families? Which resources would be least accessible to students and their families?
One of the resources we learned about was that since Hazlitt Library doesn't have many books available in other languages, they are connected by network with the Okemos Library. And even beyond that, libraries are all connected to larger, more substantial collections libraries. So that could be something that you might not be able to find at Hazlitt Public Library, but you might find it nearby, and through the database of network of libraries, you could find something. It would just take a lot of extra effort, it seems.
Also in the library, we found, besides the Spanish collection, they also had a few DVDs that featured learning English and also Spanish.
It might also be useful to connect with the local schools. In our placements, we have teachers that have resources and are connected to, maybe spaces that would be more language inclusive.
And then the last question asks, what are the implications of this assignment for your teaching practice in your placement classroom and beyond? I think you kind of answered that one in the last one. I think it is hard for people who don't speak English as their first language to get access to resources, but I think that makes the teachers feel like they need to support students that don't speak English as their first language even more.
It probably feels as if you have to put away your home language and learn English very quickly. Otherwise, it's be hard to operate day to day, which would be it really puts a prominence on English and really disempowers those that don't speak English fluently, and kind of shows that their home language is not accepted here. So it was actually kind of somewhat awkward to talk about this at some of the locations because they admittedly don't have support.
And at the Y, they also mentioned that the kids that do not have the best English, it makes it harder to communicate with them, and if there's no resources to help communicate with them, it really is not easy to support them.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.